Okay, no intro today, let's just get into it. So after Ruby got stuck in a nightmare, she wakes up back in her dorm talking with Weiss. Weiss talks a bit about how she expects Ruby to protect what is precious to her, and Ruby said she tried. There are several lines here that make me horrifically confused, such as Weiss saying that Ruby felt bad for the locked up mini Weisses in Team Juniper and wanted to free them, and that Ruby can get away with things that Weiss can't. Well, that was a sentence that could drop a few IQ points. First of all, it was John who freed them, not Ruby, and that was part of her plan. It was never explained what Ruby's plan was, so fuck you, show, if you want to try and use that as an excuse. Second, what does that even mean? Oh, and Weiss tells Ruby that she can move around the city freely. Bull fucking shit. Both in this episode and in previous episodes, Ruby was not able to move freely. That's John, supposedly. I mean, the robots ignore him, but they actively attack Ruby. Did no one even proofread this fucking script? When I fuck up on these videos, it can be somewhat forgiven, as I am one person trying this out, and I haven't even done this for a full year. But for a professional studio, there really isn't much excuse. Ruby then tells Weiss she got Ruby's weapon wrong, and Weiss says that it was on purpose and for a reason. So now things are being done for a reason, but we aren't allowed to know what that reason is yet. Yeah, go to hell, show. Also, Ruby brings up the bunk beds thing again, which Weiss says again that she wanted a bunk bed. Good lord, this dialogue is more repetitive than this video series, or the grinding in a bad RPG. Oh yeah, and Weiss says that you need to lock up the things you care about and put them to sleep. Wait, but if Weiss goes to sleep, she dies, so sleep in this case is bad, not good. Oh, whatever. The series looks more like Swiss cheese at this point, so there's no point in dwelling on any of the story beats. So Ruby is about to die back in the dream, and John gets her near enough to the sword to push back the nightmare and cure Ruby. Okay, sure, that's fine, I guess. Also, the episode keeps cutting back to the waking world, but all those scenes are pointless, so let's skip them. Cut to Weiss as she sings Mirror Mirror, and in Ruby tradition, the voice actress doesn't sing, so we get our performer to do it instead. It sounds awful and sounds more like English. Also, Weiss apparently, absorbed the mini versions of her and the other character model of the waking version of her into herself. Then she steps into the coffin and the nightmare pulls her in. Then we cut back to Yang and Blake as they explore the house. Turns out the place is full of junk and has another night piece inside a room that is full of books, including the one that Blake was reading in episode 2. Yang says that the piece was meant for her. So I admit to being very late in figuring out that, yes, there has been one night of each color for each of the girls, which means that the key to Weiss's heart is her friends, or is with her friends, which doesn't line up with anything in this show, but consistency is for good shows, and this isn't a good show. The White Fang monsters wake up and don't attack, as Blake points out that in Weiss's mind, both her and the White Fang are the same, and Yang tries to comfort Blake by pointing out that the nightmare created all this, but Blake doesn't seem to be offended and even says how it parallels her own feelings about the Schnee Dust Company. Well, that was a nice moment of introspection. Something I have noticed throughout the show is that the characters keep trying to placate Blake in these scenes, but Blake already said she wouldn't let what she saw in the dream affect her. Yet, all the other characters act like she's about to go off at Weiss at any second. If anyone were to do that, it'd be Yang, you dunces. Oh wait, you forgot to include Yang's character trait of having a temper and being impulsive, so it doesn't fucking matter. And in a moment of clarity, Blake tells Yang that they need a new plan. No shit, you need a new plan. You've done the same plan with minor variations twice now and it hasn't worked. But Yang starts going on about not being a coward and crap, which makes no sense because Blake just said let's make a new plan, not let's sneak in or something. But before anything can happen, we cut back over to John and Ruby as they try to see what doors are still available, and short answer, almost none. John points out to Ruby that they can't just recklessly take everything head on, and Ruby tries to come up with a better plan. Her idea is to take the train further into the city. She figures this will work because there were no tracks before, and since she can move freely, more tracks will appear as they move forward, just like before. John and Ruby also talk about how Weiss may have told her this, but it's Negative Weiss they need to worry about. But if Negative Weiss is chasing them, then Weiss won't die, and it gives more time for Blake and Yang to show up. I wish they would just admit that there weren't two versions of Weiss. It's the same person affected by the nightmare, just move on from this stupid fucking idea. Anyways, then John asks about the mini Weisses in Pyrrha, and Ruby decides that she wants Weiss to be more free, even though that plan already failed last episode, and that the reason they went on a rampage in the first place was because she asked them to fight for freedom. This time she'll ask them to fight for Weiss. Hey, newsflash, Ruby, they're still fighting, and changing the dream too much will just make things worse, and there isn't much difference in those two requests you make to them. Then Ruby says she wants Weiss to want to leave this place. Yeah, no shit. See, here's one of my issues, is that Weiss wants to get out from under her father and to clear the Schnee family name, and yet in her dream she's locked up inside of basically a company town run by the Schnee Dust Company. She'd want to leave this place, and yet here she is being obsessed about her family instead. What a stupid fucking plot. Anyways, the train moving wakes up Weiss, and the train is attacked by robots, and yes, more tracks appear because of course they do. Man, funny how they said there were no robots and now they suddenly reappear. The train is stopped almost at their destination by Weiss and her pet statue. Ruby tries to convince Weiss to let her through, but to no avail. The sword gets pulled out of the train and the nightmare can now enter it, and the good guys keep getting whittled down until help arrives, which Yang comes through the door of the train and a bunch of white fangs show up and attack the robots. And then in a moment so fuck you worthy that I nearly said it over 30 times when I first saw this scene, Blake shows up dressed as fucking Raven and attacks Weiss. I have nothing more to add in regards to the story of this episode. Even when there is no padding in the writing department, we still get idiocy over entertainment. Seriously, there's a lot of talk about plans, but not a lot of talk of how to go about the plan and the execution. As for characters, well, what can I say? Ruby learned nothing in this and is doing the same thing yet again. John is still the same, so is Weiss. Yang, funnily enough, is closer to how she was in the original just by having a moment where her temper flares, but then they ruin it by having her not listen to Blake, which, if this was the Yang of the original series, she would have asked Blake what they should do or suggest they find Ruby to get her take on things and to come up with a plan. As for the animation, there's absolutely nothing. It's the same as the last episode. The animation is still kind of crap, but it's at least somewhat improved. So conclusions. I won't repeat myself, so let me just launch into the thank yous. A big thank you to everyone who watches these videos and to my subscribers. I am trying to do better, and every comment and like helps. I would like to reach 20 followers as my next milestone, and I have no idea what I'll do for that. Maybe I could do a stream for each milestone? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This has been Veiled Shadow. Until next time, and we still have about 3 episodes to go.